Good afternoon, I'm Max Vivian, the son of Mr. and Mrs. Vivian, who were the founders of the Kerepehi brass band. Kerepehi became the home of the Vivian family when Mr. and Mrs. George and Ivy Vivian, my mum and dad, came to milk cows, 50 in total, 25 each by hand. This was on the property where the dairy factory was later built. Owing to Dad's health problems, this farm work was no longer possible, and having sold the cows, they purchased a small house in the village. This was made possible by a bank loan guaranteed by Mr. Herb Collins, the manager of the local store which later became known as Kerrytown. Dad was continually concerned for the young people, and with his knowledge of music and brass bands, thanks to his experience in the Salvation Army, he was determined that he should do something to help the situation. Thus, the seed was sown, and very soon Dad was on his bicycle to see Mr. Tom Jordan, with whom he shared his concern. Dad wanted to finance the venture by annual £1 donations, and although Mr. Jordan said, "I don't think it will ever happen," he gave Dad £1, and Mr. Jordan later became the very first chairman of the band committee. Dad then cycled the district over many weeks, visiting every home for his £1 donation, and found a good response. Next thing was the need for instruments. So contacting Sergeant's Transport in Netherton, he arranged to meet the early transporters going to Auckland on a daily return trip. He was often seen waiting at the hotel corner on the main road at 5 o'clock in the morning. This was to give him a full day in the city, looking for instruments, which he then took to Kirkman and Brown for any necessary repairs. Uniforms were purchased from Mr. Tom Carton's menswear in Pairo. They were very plain, so Mum, along with the ladies of the Women's Auxiliary, did much sewing of stripes and logos on the uniforms and caps. As the number of players increased, a suitable practice room was hard to find, and after using Thompson's butcher shop for some months, it was a great day when the band had its own room. The band became almost a full-time job for Mum and Dad, who walked to the band room twice a day in their 70s for the learners' classes and practices. The band fulfilled many functions locally, providing music for Anzac services in Kerepehi, Ngatea and Waitakere. It was always a busy day. The band also provided buglers for the RSA funeral services as required in the various centres. Activities included providing the music for the numerous marching girls competitions, which were very popular at that time. They were very demanding days, playing for 4 or 5 hours, making sure the marches were played at exactly the right tempo, 120 beats or steps to the minute. Dad was an expert at this, and the teams loved our band. The band gave many concerts in the local Hauraki Plains district, which were well attended, and they featured regularly at the Kerepehi Easter Monday Sports, which was a big event for the district. As well as fulfilling these many local engagements, I remember the band was invited to Hastings to participate in the programs and lead the Blossom Festival procession. We also were invited to Rotorua to lead the parades associated with the 30,000 Club. They had a week-long festival using their recently built sound shell. These were great days for the band. About this time, the name of the band was changed from the Kerepehi Boys Brass Band to the Kerepehi Brass Band, as by now a number of girls have become regular playing members. It was still the KBB. Mr. Harvey Spraggan became a very involved and encouraging committee chairman, often travelling with us, and is seen in uniform in the 1958 band photo. During this time, both my brothers, being trained by Dad, became highly qualified musicians. Don as a classical pianist with his LTCL, and Vai as an instrumentalist, becoming one of New Zealand's most highly qualified trumpeters with an FTCL. They both gave many years to the life of the band. Don as a trombonist, and for some time the band secretary. It was during these years that Vai, at 13 years of age, won the Tenor Horn Open Championship of New Zealand. Some years later, they moved from Kerepehi, Don to Tikawiti, and Vai, with the encouragement of the band committee and the financial support of the district, went to London to further his musical studies. In 1956, I re-established the Vivian School of Music, and then, because of Mum and Dad's retirement to Auckland in 1960, I also became the bandmaster, a position I held and enjoyed for about 8 years. In all of this, I was supported by my late wife, Nairi, and by the same time, by the same community that had for so many years been such a great support for Mum and Dad in the birth and the development of the band. I say development because Dad was not only interested in the music, but also in the development of the young people in his charge. It is because of this community support and faithful and sacrificial involvement of many band masters and band members, both past and present, that the band still functions and is at its strongest for many years. May it continue to be an asset within the community and in the development of both young and not so young. Thank you. My brother and I were preparing for a competition down in Wellington, and we'd been practicing well so that we were all prepared when this test piece came. The idea of the test piece was that everybody got it at the same time, they had the same number of weeks to prepare, and we were all set, ready to go, and this piece of music came through the post. On to the music stand it went, and my Vai and I, without cornets, we were into it, you see. Dad was there, see what we were doing. We'd been going along and I was still struggling away, working on this thing, because it wasn't easy, and blowing me down. My brother, he turns round, closes his eyes and plays the rhythm thing without any music. That's the difference between a musical fella and a trained music player. You know, different altogether.